rationing. And the Screen magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain the reason. And he wanted to know that what he could do if they would in world greater cities, becoming monuments to the courage and faith of the unschooled American. Buffalo hunter who with his breaking oak and the old well. From these broken streets.
Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is the History Show. This show is put on by Chelmsford Media. What we do in this show is we interview veterans. Hopefully we can get the World War II veterans in first, and I have a World War II veteran here with me. What happens with this video eventually will wind up on the in the Library of Congress and will be archived. And if you go into the Library of Congress website, you could see the names of the people that were interviewed. It's very interesting that we have this gentleman from the United States Marine Corps during World War II and the Korean War. His name is Paul Cricones. I know his family, he knows my family. We go back in time. But what we're going to get into is we're going to talk about his experiences in the Marine Corps. He was a 17-year-old young boy just out of high school in Lowell, Massachusetts, and he decided to join up. His parents had a sign for him, and he went to Parris Island. That's where Marines do their basic training. From his basic training, he went to Cherry Point Air Station because he was going to be in the Air Wing or the Air Squadron of the Marine Corps. From there, Cherry Point, he went down to Jacksonville, Florida for radio school. It's not the ground radio school that we know of because he was going to be in a squadron and it was going to be bombers. He trained in that type of radio. He did a lot of Morse code down there, and he still remembers his Morse code, which is very interesting. From there, he went to Hollywood, Florida. What was that, Paul, in regards to Hollywood, Florida?
Gunnery school.
Gunnery school. For how long was that?
About 8 weeks.
It was 8 weeks gunnery school, and every time he finished a school, he got a stripe. So by that time, you should have been, after gunnery school, you should have been a sergeant. Is that correct?
Corporal.
A corporal. Okay, I'm sorry. And did they have lance corporal in those days?
No.
No, they didn't have lance corporal. Now they have lance corporal and corporal. And from there, you were in Hollywood, Florida. You enjoyed it in Hollywood, Florida. Had a great time. In the last show, he was telling us a story in Hollywood, Florida, how they they were living in bungalows, and 4 to a bungalow, 4 Marines to a bungalow, and the Navy personnel were in one building, and the Marines were sort of in these bungalows. There were 4, and there was no curfew or anything like that. So you guys used to go into Hollywood, downtown Hollywood. And what did you do downtown Hollywood? I mean,
We went down and had a couple of Coca-Colas.
Okay. They had Coca-Cola in those days, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
What do they call them? Cuba Libras?
I don't know. I mean,
Rum and Coke.
Rum and Cokes, okay. And you were telling us a story how you used to put the your sea bags, I guess that's what they call them in the Marines, underneath the in case there was a bed check, or is that what it is? Is that what they call it? And did they have bed check every night, or was it just occasionally?
No, they did it. What do they call it? A surprise inspection type thing.
All right.
And evidently, someone must have said something, because there's probably 40 of us, more or less, Marines, that were in there, and at any given time, at least half of us would be walking. It was only about a 3/4 mile walk to Hollywood. So anyway, this one night, I didn't go, and they had a surprise bed check. And this time, the sergeant of the guard kept knocking on the door and pulling on it till somebody got up and flashed his light and hollering, "Let me in." And, oh my God, here we are. 2 of my buddies were there. 2 of us were still there. We may believe we were sleeping. "Come on, you guys." And finally, he pulled the what do you call it?
The latch, or
latch, the hook, actually, off the door. He come in. Oh, they started taking down names. So we had the names in the bunks. all those guys got a summary court, a captain's master they called it in those days. It was just the CO of the Marine Detachment, and they didn't get their one-stripe promotion after gunnery
Oh,
school.
no kidding. So it was just by chance that you were there and you got a stripe, which means more pay. Do you remember how much you were getting paid as a corporal?
As a PFC, we're getting, let's see, private, a couple of months previously, we got raised from 30 to 50. And a PFC, I think, was $56.
Wow.
And corporal was, no, wait a minute. PFC was, I really don't remember.
Okay.
Something like $56.
Right.
A corporal was like 60, because I remember I made buck sergeant, it was 66 or something.
Now, did you play golf? I know you were playing golf yesterday. Did you play golf down in Florida?
No. I didn't start playing golf till I was 72 years old.
Oh, wow, very good.
Nothing else left in life. I said, I'm still trying, too.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. And so you finally learned what kind of caliber weapons were you?
50 caliber machine
guns. Okay.
What they did at the gunnery range, they had a railroad track, and they had these, like the hand cars you've seen years ago.
Yeah, the pump cars.
Except these were run by remote, I guess.
Okay.
And then they had targets on those, and then quite a distance. And as they came out along, they had to holler out over the bullhorn there, and we'd start firing away at it. And they were teaching us to lead the target. Oh, plus we had skeet. Like skeet?
Skeet shooting, yeah.
Clay pigeons,
right.
again, to learn to lead a target, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, we did quite a bit of that between the 50 calibers and the skeets.
So you had to have good eyesight.
Well, yeah, I did then. It's all gone now.
Don't say that. So you did that for 8 weeks, is that it? Practice.
Plus
That's-
classes, yeah.
Yeah, class. But in the military, it's all practice, all training. And did you find it to be good training in the end? I mean, when?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So they knew what they were doing, basically.
Yeah.
So then you finished training. Was there a parade or anything like that? Or, you just got your
They
orders?
handed us, like I said, corporal stripes. Those that got them.
All right. Now, did you? This is a good question, and a lot of the people in the audience don't know this. Did you ever witness a drumming out of the Marine Corps?
Yes.
Was it at this time in training, or was it later on in life?
When we were in radio school in Jacksonville.
Okay, let's talk about that.
There was a
This is, excuse me one second. In the military, especially the Marine Corps that I know of, they call it a drumming out of the military, and it's the worst thing. It's basically today, I don't know if they do it today, it would be very negative, but I want you to explain to the audience very slowly what happens when a person is drummed out of the Marine Corps. Now, were these Marines or were these?
Two were sailors and one was a Marine.
One was a Marine. And what was the infraction? Do you remember what the infraction they did?
I think all of them were caught, actually, basically stealing. They were breaking into the buddies' lockers.
Foot lockers and everything? Okay. And did they have a trial or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they had a court-martial, basically.
Right.
And the court-martial
They
found
got
them
bad contact discharge.
bad conduct discharge. So explain what happens in the military, or did happen. I think it up to the 50s or 60s, I think this happened. This is very unique, and a lot of people have not witnessed this, and a lot of people don't know about it. But this is what Paul is going to tell you what happens here in his words. From his vision, you saw this live.
No, they called out all the students, Navy and Marines, because both were involved in that. Had us out in the parade field, all in formation, and the SPs, shore patrol.
Okay, shore patrol.
The cops, the Navy
Yeah,
cops.
the shore patrol in the military, in the Navy is called SPs, and they have a little SP in white and black armband, and they go around. And it's in the military, it's in the Army, it's MPs, and in the Air Force now, it's called APs.
Right. So the SPs marched them out in the middle on the stand out in the parade field, and some lieutenant got up
In front of the
there.
American flag, right? I mean,
yeah.
is the American flag?
Yeah, American flag background. And the lieutenant got up and read out the infractions.
To everyone.
And they had the old speakers on.
Oh, okay.
And read them all off, and they are hereby dishonorably, that's what it was, dishonorably discharged from the Navy and the Sailors' Instance, the Marine Corps and the other. And then the ESPYs went up with a razor, and one of them was the petty officer third class, equivalent to a sergeant. And cut off the insignia with a razor, cut off the U.S. Navy insignia and all that stuff. Took them out to the front gate. I remember that's what they had left the uniform. We didn't see them going out of the gate, so I got to assume that they took them somewhere and gave them some kind of civilian clothes because they didn't want to disgrace the services with their going out, you know. But then they had the drum and bugle corps, just the drummers, boom, 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 and marched them all the way out.
Wow.
That was impressive. That registered on everybody.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
That's not too many people have seen that, but I mean, I've heard about it, and I thought it'd be very interesting for the audience to understand that this is, and it's a slow drum beat.
Almost like at a funeral.
Yeah. And they have to do about face, and they march them out, and everybody watches them march out, and that's it. And then you guys march off in the formation. Is that it?
Right.
Wow. Yeah. That's I think that's a historic event because I don't think they do that in the military today. So I think as an eyewitness to that, and a lot of American public doesn't know that has gone on in the American military. Yeah. And that was the only time you've ever seen it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
All right. That's cool. So, let's get back to, you were at Hollywood, I'm getting mixed up, and then they shipped you back to Cherry Point?
Jacksonville.
Oh, Jacksonville. Why was that?
Because they told us when they were getting ready to ship us out, they said, well, all you Marines, we don't know what to do with you, and the Marine Corps doesn't. So they told us to hang on to you, and we're going to ship you back to Jacksonville. And we were flying in TBFs. The Navy called them the flying coffins. That's what, again, President Bush, #1, flew in.
As a fighter during World War II.
Right.
Was he shot down in that?
He was. And that's the one thing I didn't care about on that plane. The ordnance gunners, we call them, the guys who went to ordnance school.
Right.
There was a turret, machine gun turret behind the pilot.
Okay.
Topside.
So he had his back to the pilot.
Right.
Okay.
And the radio gunner was down in the bottom of the ship in the tail. It's like being on a hatch, and all you can see is a little window about the yay much with a .30 caliber sticking out, like you could do anything with it. And the only way in and out for both the ordnance gunner and the radio gunner was a hatch that opened down. The bottom of the fuselage near the tail. That's why President Bush, when his plane went down, the pilot could slide the cockpit back and get out.
The canopy.
Out. The canopy,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
The canopy in the cockpit.
Yeah,
out.
okay, in the cockpit.
And he could get out very easily. The other two guys, no way.
So he lost those two guys?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But that was never mentioned.
Oh, he's mentioned it a few times. I remember I've seen.
Well,
it
yeah,
on
he's mentioned he's made it. He's mentioned that he lost the two guys.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and how he felt so bad that he couldn't help them and get them out.
Oh, that's interesting perspective.
And the squadron he was in, if I don't remember, I believe he was in Torpedo Squadron 8. They were on a carrier. They were carrier based. Those guys.
He was a young guy at the time. He was 19. Wasn't he?
Well, he was. I guess when he went in, he was 19
or 20.
This was like he was about 20 or 21.
Oh, okay.
And the torpedo squadron, anyway, that was on the same carrier, everybody but one pilot got shot down and killed. And this guy's name was George Gay, Ensign George Gay, and they brought him to Jacksonville when we were there from Hollywood, and he talked to us about the TBFs and all that.
Oh, is that right? Oh.
Yeah. They sent him on a tour.
I see.
Like, I don't know, a war bond tour. Go around and say, I'm the only guy that survived out of 20 aircraft in the
Yeah.
carrier.
So the war bonds basically, why would you want to buy war bonds if the planes are being shot down? War bonds are basically something that the American public was sold. It was sold by the American government to the public to help the war. Is that right?
Yeah. Now today, I don't know what they call them, savings bonds.
U.S.
actually.
savings bonds, yeah. So, okay.
So anyway, so we were flying in TBS, and that's the only time in the 5 years I was in the Marine Corps between World War II and Korea that I was nervous flying, was landing on a carrier.
Wow.
And again, these guys were just out of flight school, young ensigns in the Navy. That none of them had landed on a carrier either.
Wow.
So we're all three of us in an airplane going down, and every once in a while they'd have me swap with the ordnance gunner so I could sit up in the turret, and that's when you could see, you could swing the turret around enough to look down. You look down at that carrier and it looked like the size of this carpet here. What's frightening. You go down and you're sitting there hoping to wait for that pull once he catches the hook catches on the cable. Wait. And then they had us going out in PBYs, patrol bombers. Those things had a top speed.
This is in Jacksonville, right?
Again, in Jacksonville.
Okay.
These things had a top speed of about 85 knots, which is equivalent to not even, I don't know,
Close to 100
not
miles
even
an hour.
100 miles, barely
Okay.
100 miles an hour. And we used to fly up and down the coast because that was their mission,
Right.
patrol bombers looking for submarines and stuff. And I'll never forget, we were flying over Daytona Beach,
Right.
off the water, but
Right.
close enough that we could see a baseball game. We caught a whole inning, a whole half inning of a baseball
Wow.
game before we got out of range.
Wow, that's
In
interesting.
fact, that's where I winter now, is in Ormond Beach, which is very next town to Daytona Beach. And now they call that field Jackie Robinson Field. It was another name back in '43.
Right.
And there's a farmer's market every Saturday, and it's right adjacent to that ball field.
Oh, no kidding.
That
So
brings
you-
back memories.
Yeah, flying over it. Just never know. So you were in Jacksonville, and what happened after Jacksonville? Did they say we didn't want Marines there?
We were there about a month,
Okay.
maybe 6 weeks, and then they called us together and said, all right, all you Marines, you're going back to Cherry Point,
Naval Air Station.
and we're going,
Right.
Marine Corps Air Station.
Right.
And you're going into a B-25 squad now. What are B-25s? So anyway, we went up there and we got into VMB 613.
Okay, well, tell us what B-25s are. Bomber means B
It's
means
a medium bomber.
It's a medium bomber.
Right. But the squadron designation was VMB 613.
Okay,
And V in the Navy means heavier than air,
okay,
medium bomber.
okay.
Again, heavier than air versus dirigibles and blimps that the Navy had back
Okay.
in the old days before they started flying.
Yeah, the
So-
Navy did have blimps at Lakers, New Jersey.
So
yeah.
we found out about B-25s, and we had, as I say, we had an F-4U, a Corsair squadron next to us.
Corsair, what is a
It's
fighter?
a fighter.
Okay.
Yeah, gull-winged fighter. That was a beautiful aircraft. Single, one pilot.
Yeah.
That's all.
I have the picture of the propeller in my brain. 'Cause
Four-bladed prop.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. We were coming back from Childers one day, and this kid had just come into the squadron. He was a crew chief, a mechanic,
Right.
and all the B-25s, well, in all, there's about 6 of them lined up along the taxi strip. All the engines going. The crew chiefs were running
Right.
up to test them. And I don't know where this kid came from behind somewhere, and he's walking up between the B-25s. And the F-4Us, the Corsair, it's like that.
It's
So
tilted
the
up.
pilot can't see in front of him. They have to taxi zigzag.
Oh.
And this poor kid comes walking out. And I don't know whatever prompted him. They tell me the guy, one of the crew chiefs, was right there. And his plane, he's hollering at him, but with all those engines going, you can't
right.
hear anything. But for some reason, he says, as he started to go past the wing, and he kept looking back, and he's walking out, and here's this F-4U coming along. God is my witness, that poor kid. Buddy and I were going into the Radio Shack, and that kid's lower jaw landed about 3 feet in front of us. Oh, man, what a feeling. Chopped that poor kid to pieces, that fool.
Wow. That's what's wrong in the military. I mean, you have these actual accidents, and that's a big concern in the military, because things like that happen all the time in the military. You know, they do happen, and they do care about the personnel. I mean, they try to prevent these accidents, but what can you do? Sometimes those things happen. I mean, it's very difficult. They're actual injuries. They're not fake injuries. These are actual injuries in training, and it does happen. I mean, if you have children in the military, they could succumb to an accident. A car crash, a Jeep could flip, or a Humvee can flip. Anything can happen. It's not that they're not heroes, or they are, but it's part of the makeup of the military, because they have machinery all the time, and it's always going. That's interesting. I bet you that's something you haven't talked about in a long time, huh?
Oh, I haven't. I have.
So you were on the flight line, and now what happened there? They call the medical people, and
Then they got a bunch of guys and went around and said, anything that looks like a piece of meat, put it in this can. And
you're kidding me.
Yeah. Well, another time, about a couple of, maybe 3 months later. Another thing, they love to experiment with those B25s. They says, we're going to try using a B25 to lay mines out in the ocean. Well, that Bombay could maybe hold 1 mine. Anyway,
are we talking about those circular mines that I see in the movies?
The mines out that they drop out in the ocean.
They anchor them.
So they wanted to practice. So they used to send you out with blanks, you know, just the mine itself, so they could get in the practice. And this one time, well, let's try now what happens when we, oh God, so what they call it?
Release it? Or?
No, the fuse when it's loaded.
Oh, okay. They engage the fuse, the primer. Yeah, the primer.
And then see what happens when they drop them in the water. Well, there's this plane lining up again. We were just coming out of chow. Of course, the chow hall was a couple hundred feet from the flight line.
Right.
The plane blows up. Again, they grabbed us. Anything that looks like a piece of meat, put it in this bucket. Anything, the metal here.
No kidding.
I'm telling you, that was,
See, those things do happen in the military. I mean, you're dealing with fuel, you're dealing with a lot of parameters that, accidents do happen.
Yeah.
And it's a serious business when you go in the military. They never tell you that when you go in the military, but there's accidents. I mean, trucks can fall off of cliffs and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you were at Cherry Point, you saw all these things. Yeah. You wanted to get out of there. Now, how did you get out of there? Now, tell us how. Well, you get orders to go overseas?
Back then, that was around March of '44.
Okay.
The Marine Corps policy, we already had a B-25 squadron that was in the Pacific,
in the Pacific
already.
Theater.
Yeah, they had left there in November, I think.
Okay.
And
November of '44?
Or 43.
43, okay.
They shipped them out while we were in Jacksonville. That's why they shipped us afterwards up to Cherry Point, started a new Marine Air Group, 4 squadrons.
Right.
So, and then whenever they needed replacement crews, they'd take one of our airplanes, put a crew on it with the crew that flew together, and send them overseas. So I'd fly the plane overseas. So this one buddy of mine they got called as replacements, and he comes in to the barracks and he says to me, gee, he says, that new radio man I got in, he just got out of radio school and gunnery school, and we got orders to go overseas, and he doesn't want to go, he's afraid. I said, what? I said, jeepers. I said, why don't you talk to the pilot? I said, I'll go, I'll volunteer, take his place. Mm-hmm. So he did, and I did. And we flew out to California, and then they decided, well, and they didn't decide, they said, look, there's only 5 men, we have 7-man crew, there's only 5 men that can stay with the plane to fly overseas. We have to strip everything down for lighten the weight and put auxiliary fuel tanks on, because they only had 15 minutes of flying time when they flew from California to Hawaii in those days with that job. So anyway, we had to stay and take a ship. So we ended up in a Liberty ship full of infantry guys from the Marines.
Marine infantry. Okay. Was there a little static? You guys were, you know, the air wing, and they were the line guys.
These were all. In fact, they brought. I was telling them, my buddies this morning. In fact, they must have brought 500 of them handcuffed
to the boat.
That's right. The MPs brought them all in. These kids had, back in those days, they used to get out of boot camp. They gave you leave. We never got leave. I never got a leave. All the time I was in the Marine Corps. Till till I got discharged, and these kids went home. They didn't want to go back because they were told, well, you guys are going here, then you can report to
California, whatever it is,
Camp Pendleton, and you're going right overseas. Oh yeah, so they all took off, but they stayed around home. They just didn't report in. So they went. They
were AWOL, absent without leave.
AWOL, actually, yeah. So anyway, there was 10,000 of them on the lousy Liberty ship. Man, that was miserable.
Get seasick?
No, I never got seasick or airsick in my life.
Wow.
I went down, like I say, they told me, oh yeah, I go down to the fourth hole. I went down with my buddy and I looked at this tiny little room. I think they had 6 or 7 hammocks, 4 rows of them. My God, you could fit in between when a guy was in the one on top, especially, you know. So I says, Doug Neal, my ordnance gunner, was with me. I says, Doug, the heck with this. What are you going to do? Grab your sea bag. We went topside, got behind a smokestack, and that's where I slept.
Oh, wow.
All the way across, 21 days.
Wow, on deck, huh?
Oh, yeah, nice clear air. And
wow, that was smart of you.
And there was one continuous chow line. Started at 5 o'clock in the morning till noontime. Then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they started the chow. There was no lunch thing.
Right.
And the horrible chow, but what are they going to do? Hard-boiled eggs, cold toast, powdered milk.
Well, you have 10,000 guys in one
place.
Yeah,
right. So we stood there and went, oh my God. Well, we went topside after we ate and we're sitting there. All these kids were coming out. They had the lunch in their dungaree pockets and everything, and going over the rail and tossing their cookies, you know. So one of them comes and sat next to me and I said, hey kid, are you going to eat that chow? Oh, no, Sarge, you want it? Yeah. I says, well, and tomorrow, and as long as we're on this ship, if you don't feel like eating it, bring it to me.
Wow.
I'm not going to stand in line again. And we didn't.
Oh, that was a smart tactic.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
So we ended up on Russell Island.
Where's Russell Island now?
That's out in the somewhere.
Now I'm going to have to look at my map.
Somewhere, it's between Bougainville and Guadalcanal.
Okay, why don't we talk about Russell Island in the next show, okay? Because basically what we're going to do is tie this one up, and we'll talk on another show about where you went to. Like, did you land in Hawaii first? I mean,
no, never went
you went
Hawaii.
Straight to Russell Island.
I thought I was going to. My order said report the Commanding General, Fleet Marine Force,
SIPAC? What do they call it?
FPO, Fleet Post Office. They didn't say the location,
right,
you know.
Right.
We're at sea about 6 days, and I tell this Navy chief, there was a gun crew, because the crew was civilians, and the gun crew was Navy. Hey, Chief, when are we getting Hawaii? Hawaii? He says, see that dot way out there? He says, that's Hawaii. We're not going there.
Oh, wow. All right, that's it. Well, thanks for coming. I mean, you know, that's a good one. And interesting story how they drum people out. A lot of people don't know that. That's why I like watching the show on TV. Too bad they don't have it on TV.